learners and their writing abilities. Then we're going to be talking about ways to support writing with young learners, and we're going to break out into smaller groups where we're going to work on a few case studies, and we'll then finish off with a session of question and answers and any other information that you would like. So, to get us started, could you please write in the chat box, writing with young learners is. So I will put the sentence starter, which is something we'll talk about later, into the box. Writing, if you would like to take a minute, think about a couple of responses that you could give to this topic. Oh, a process, I like that. Chance to develop creativity. Difficult, but interesting, yes. It definitely can be difficult sometimes. We do have somebody who's registered as iPhone, the last person to join us. Do you mind just telling us who you are in our group, please?
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Ah, wonderful. Sorry, I just noticed that I got the wrong ID. Yeah, they sent an email later. I just noticed. So sorry. Sorry,
okay.
Yeah, Priscilla from Hong Kong. Yeah, I did the TESOL course with EFI.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi there.
Fantastic. Welcome, Priscilla. Okay, so I've got, I think the consensus is it is very challenging writing with young learners, but very rewarding and a lot of fun. And it is quite an adventure as well. Very creative. So to get started, we will go through a session where there's quite a lot of information I need to share with you. If at any point you would like to ask a question, please just put it into the chat box and we can deal with it when I get to the end of this section. Okay, so we're going to be talking about 5 main stages of literacy development, starting off with the emergent stage, which you would expect to be pre-K to 1st grade, or I've also put the British school years as a reference for anybody who is in that system. So it would be nursery, reception, year 1. This is where you would likely find your emergent writers. However, some children might be at different stages to their expectations, so this is also something to be aware of. Then we have the beginning stage, 1st and 2nd grade, the transitional stage, which is 2nd and 3rd grade, intermediate, 3rd and 5th, and advanced, which would be 5th to 8th grade and on. However, again, you will often find 1 or 2 people in your class who would be on a higher level, and even 1 or 2 who might be on a lower level, or displaying elements of either one. So the emergent phase, this is very young learners. They may not even be writing with a pencil. They would probably be using their hands, tracing, molding shapes, and probably wanting to do something a lot more tactile. They may be pretending to write, or tracing, or just mimicking a teacher. Their writing, if any, would be just a scribble, and they may be able to write a few rudimentary letters by the end of the emergent stage. In the beginning stage, this is when they start to be able to write a few words. They may be able to write a paragraph at this stage. As the stage progresses, they'll be able to write a short paragraph of 3 to 4, maybe even 5 sentences. And spelling will develop into words with easy vowel patterns like ship or a lot of CVC words, but they will be struggling with difficult vowel patterns like float and other vowel blends. The transitional phase, as the children get older and more capable of writing longer things, they could write more than 1 paragraph, sometimes 2 or 3 paragraphs. May not be all that well structured, but they can be guided quite easily. There would be some errors with tricky vowel patterns, an example being train with an A and E as opposed to train with an AIN. And some tricky words like pleasure might be misspelt because of the zh sound with the S up there. In the intermediate phase, Children will be starting to experiment with genre styles. They would have been exposed to a range of different types of text, and they'll start wanting to write this themselves. There'll be some spelling mistakes. Again, I've given an example there. Writing will become a bit more fluent. It won't be read quite as robotically, and the sentences will flow on much more neatly. And they will be beginning to build more expression and voice into their writing. In the advanced stage, there'll be a high level of critical thinking, analysis, and problem solving. They will be much more able to produce reflective pieces. And there'll be some errors in words containing a schwa especially. But as this stage progresses, the spelling errors will become fewer and fewer. So now I've put this very huge wordy screen on here. I would like you to either take a screenshot or a photograph of this, as we will be using this as a reference later on in the webinar. I will give you all about 30 seconds to do so. Okay, please just pay attention to the areas on writing on this table. This is stages of literacy development, so it does include reading, but we are not going to be focusing on reading for the purpose of this presentation. Okay, so now I would like you to have a look at these two case studies. We've got two children, totally fictitious. I've just chosen the names out of many students I've taught in the past. Jay is a very confident writer. He enjoys writing in sand, in a sensory tray, as well as writing sentences after reading a book in class. He spells high-frequency words well and has a good success rate with consonant blends. He finds vowel blends challenging. He can create a short paragraph of 4 or 5 sentences. Then we have Lily, who likes to write fairy tales where there is a happy ending, as well as adventure stories where the boys get into trouble. She can get her message across when she writes, but finds spelling of tricky words really hard. She finds words like cellar with a C or cellar with an S very frustrating to get right. Now, please take 2 minutes to have a look at the table that I posted before and start to comment on which stage you think these learners are in and why.
Once you're ready to answer, you can post your comments in the chat box.
I'll leave this slide here for a moment and then I can go back to the case studies. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide again. Thanks for letting us know. Yes, Ben, that is a very good question. Jay is quite a competent writer, but he's only able to form one very short paragraph, whereas Lily can form multiple paragraphs. Yes, I would say that Lily is an intermediate student, as she is still struggling with her spelling and she's only beginning to experiment with genre, whereas Jay is probably a beginning student. He can form a short paragraph, but he's not really getting much longer than that. And his sentences after reading a book will probably be quite short. Laura and I have just disagreed on the point where I've said Lily would probably be on the upper scale as she's writing complete stories and actually identifying dilemmas and solutions to her stories. But again, there's not really enough information to come to a formal conclusion. So this is worth discussing. Okay, I'll give 30 more seconds if there are any more responses or discussions towards this, and then we can move on to how we're going to support young learners with their writing. Okay, so Again, please take a picture or a screenshot of the writing process, as we are going to be using this further on in this presentation. This is a pretty standard thing you would find in many classrooms across the world. And this is going to give us a lot of opportunities to provide different types of support. And this is the aim of showing you the writing process, is so that we can find out when we need to provide what kind of support for different children that we would come across in our classrooms. So if you'd just like to take a minute to read through and take a picture, I don't think we need to spend too much time reading over this together. Okay, so a few ways that we could support students in our classrooms. I'm going to just very briefly name the different strategies. Some of them would be very obvious. And then after that, I'm going to show you a few more visual elements and a deeper description of some of these strategies that might be a little bit less obvious or not as common in the classroom. So we have VCOP, or Kapow, as I've seen it called before. There's graphic organizers, story mountains, which is a different type of graphic organizer, Waggle, or what a good one looks like, or modeling the activity, sentence starters, anchor charts, story cubes, good old thesaurus or dictionary, peer assessments, word maths, synonym posters, and a word or synonym scavenger hunt. Obviously, this list is incomplete. There are many more different strategies we could use, but it's probably better to narrow the focus a little bit. So, VCOP. This is a strategy to help students improve their writing, use better vocabulary. It's a very good tool for facilitating peer assessment. It's a very good tool for facilitating self-assessment, and it is also an anchor chart that can be in the classroom. It could also be on the desk, and you could set up these things as a pyramid in the middle of somebody's desk, and they can use this as a reference tool while they're doing their writing. Kapow is another thing that it is called sometimes, which would just be connectives, punctuation, openers, and words instead of the vocabulary. There are graphic organizers, and they come in many different shapes and forms, and they could be visual, as the example I've provided here. They could also be written, and they come in many different shapes and forms. Mind maps, as well as chronologically ordered things, first, then, next, and finally, and so on. Then there's the good old story mountain. If you are teaching narratives, this is a very good way, narratives or realistic fiction, this is a very good way to structure different parts of writing for the students. And they can start to input their ideas and use this to build a very good story. Waggle, this is a very good anchor chart type thing, or modeling of the assignment or aims that you want your students to meet. And this is a particularly good example because it has a very clear example of what a good narrative should look like, as well as the elements of a very good narrative that students can use as a very clear point of reference. We have anchor charts where students are shown different parts of the writing that needs to happen so that they have a constant visual reminder. Story cubes. This is a really fun way to generate ideas and get students to practice telling stories or coming up with plot twists, coming up with any kind of narrative. They roll the dice, they put things in order, and they start to use it to tell a story. It's also a great opener for any type of activity that you're doing. Well, not any type, but many types. Peer assessment is a fantastic tool to use in the classroom. It's very good at helping students to verbalize and to visualize what they're doing. just bear in mind when running peer assessment that very clear parameters need to be set. And you would probably need to do it a few times with the same group of students for it to work effectively, as the first few times they either might be hypercritical or too nice to each other, and it might take a few false starts to really get going. It works extremely well if you use it with a checklist or an anchor chart, and using good old 3 stars and a wish is a good strategy, where you encourage the students to write 3 compliments about the piece of writing and 1 way to improve it. Then there are word maps. I apologize for the image quality here. I've just chosen this as an example. You would have probably read the story with the students at this point, and you would have these word maps so they have a very quick reference for spelling, for some adjectives to use, for some nouns to use, and some verbs that they could use in their writing, so that it would help them to construct better sentences. Synonym boards. We've all read the writing where everything is nice, it's a nice day, they're having a nice time, they ate some nice food, and they felt very nice when they woke up the next day. You really do want them to start to use more interesting adjectives and better vocabulary. Synonym charts are a great way to get that done. Okay, so your task now. Laura is going to set up some breakout rooms. So you're going to be broken off into not 3 teams, well, probably 3 teams. Laura will break you up into those teams. Please use the writing process I've shown you, the levels of ability table I've shown you, and the list of strategies to support writing to set up a writing plan for your case study. I'm going to show the case studies in a moment, and I could probably give you 10 minutes or maybe even 15 minutes. We'll be dropping into the breakout rooms to check in on you and see how you go. Then we will reconvene and share our findings. If you would like to take a photo or a screenshot of any of the screens that you might have missed, please let me know in the chat box now. Otherwise, if everybody is ready to go, we will break you up into groups.
I think case study 1 was Carol, Ben, and Yuki. I'm going to unmute your microphone so you can share what you discussed.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you, Carol and Ben.
Oh, all right. For the first case study, I believe the girl, Grace, is on the transitional level.
Yes, I agree.
And she would always use the words like good and nice. And if she goes on using those words, it becomes like tired words. And we discussed that the synonym card, synonym web would help her a lot.
Yeah.
Right, Ben?
Yes, I agree. We were talking about, first of all, because she's unorganized with her thoughts, and she has so many ideas that she has no idea where to start, we need to organize her somehow and organize her writing. So the Waggle chart really works, Story Mountain really works, any of those approaches are great. And then I think it would be best to concentrate on expanding her vocabulary. Laura had a great idea about replacing adjectives, replacing verbs, replacing different words through like a peer review.
Yep, I like that idea. So get peers to highlight something and then add in different words.
Yeah, I really like that idea, and I'll be
that's
stealing
cool.
that.
Excellent.
We're talking about synonym webs that Carol just mentioned as well. Like, get one word, so let's put nice on the board, and we'll think of 7 or 8 different synonyms that can branch out from that word that she can use in her work. And I had another one somewhere, but I've lost it now.
And waggle?
Waggle, yeah, absolutely. I love waggle.
Waggle, that's a great acronym.
I have to say waggle, not waggle.
Oh.
Cool, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like us to talk about?
No, that's a pretty comprehensive rundown of how you could help Grace. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to case study number 2, I think.
So case study, well, number 2 and 3 you kind of discussed. So that was Priscilla. Was it Kay as well, yourself and Jake?
Yes. So it was Priscilla, Jake, Kay, and I in the end. Kay or Priscilla, would you like to lead this one?
Sure. So from what I understood, I joined a little bit late. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, great. So Joshua is a boy who can write a few paragraphs. Kevin, please correct me if I'm wrong. But he kind of loses some steam in the middle of writing. He loses ideas. He can get an idea, but then he kind of like gets lost and can't figure out what to do next and gets frustrated in the middle of writing. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we thought of some different strategies, like using some pretty, orderly mind maps for him so that he can plan his writing really well, so that he can do maybe some chronological, plans for himself so that he doesn't get so frustrated. And so he's not going to do it kind of a huge mind map that's too creative or anything like that. He's going to need some things that are going to keep him on track. They might have some peer like brainstorming for him. We might be able to help him through pictures and other games that will help him to map out his story even in pictures before he ever starts to put it down on paper. And also, we mentioned a few other things, but he could write sort of in different sittings. Maybe he could write a few different days, separated by sections, or just try to get him calmed down and organized is what we talked about.
Yeah, calmed down and organized. I like that.
Yeah. And adding to that, we also mentioned that we would give him like the story cubes games to help him to have more ideas of what to write. And the peers would help him brainstorming in the first stage of the writing. And the story cubes would help him with more ideas to continue his story, basically.
Yeah, and I think I think it's also important to mention that we would choose to give him chronologically ordered graphic organizers over something more intuitive and creative like a mind map, because he likes orderliness and details. He wouldn't want something that's spread out all over the place. He'd like something that flows neatly. And also with the story cubes, it would be able to throw in some different ideas and maybe change his story a little bit and give him something a bit more exciting to add to it.
Lovely.
Okay, thank you very much, Kay and Priscilla. Shall we move on to the final case study? Is that right, Laura?
I don't think many people have actually talked about the final case study, so maybe we could discuss this between us, because it's kind of like a special educational need, right? Which is typical of what actually a lot of primary school teachers have. I've definitely had a learner like this in my class.
Yeah, well, I think that was the third case study, the one with Joshua. But I don't think we've covered case study number 2 yet, have we?
Yes, correct.
No, that's right. Sorry, I'm getting the numbers mixed up.
We're sharing a form here that I've just been hogging. So case study number 2, we've got Lenny, who can form short, simple paragraphs based on a topic he knows well or has been introduced to him. So what stage would we say Lenny is in?
You can unmute your microphones if you want to share your ideas.
My screen has frozen, so I can't go back to the case study. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So Lenny can form short and simple paragraphs based on a topic he knows well. So he can't do anything
Beginning,
1 or 2 paragraphs. So he would be
beginning
level.
stage.
Yeah, beginning, probably the upper level, upper range of beginning. Excuse me. He usually writes about people in his life or a few sentences about what he's just read at home. He struggles to choose the right word to complete a sentence and will stop writing when he runs out of ideas. What could we do to help Lenny at the lower level of our writing abilities, or writing development, sorry, not abilities? Maybe if you could type in the chat box, that might be a bit easier to manage.
I like Priscilla's idea about story cubes. I think that's a really good idea to like keep Lenny, well, help him with creating ideas, because obviously he runs out of ideas. That's one of the things that is stated here. So maybe the story cubes will give him some inspiration and maybe think about things from a different angle. Yeah, and sentence starters as well to provide scaffolding, or maybe just some example sentences as well, which you could follow. Does anyone else have any other ideas? These are all really good ideas, Priscilla. Yeah, you keep it using a graphic organizer.
Yes, I think graphic organizers at this stage are a fantastic resource, especially the typographic organizer that I showed you earlier in the presentation, where there's a lot of a drawing element. Because I think at this stage it's very important that the children are orally narrating their stories before trying to write it down, so that they have a chance to say it out. And it also gives maybe a peer or their teacher a chance to help them with any of the words that might be quite tricky, or to point to something on a word mat or a poster, or to get the book that they've been reading and maybe do a word scavenger hunt as well. Okay, so I think we've got that pretty well covered. And thank you very much, everybody, for all of your responses. Now, to finish off the presentation today, I would just like to reference the main text that we've used for this presentation, which is Literacy Development with English Learners by Laurie Hellman. It has a lot of very good ideas, a lot of very useful information to guide your planning and literacy development in your own classrooms. It is quite easy to purchase on the book depository. If you are in mainland China, it might be a bit trickier, but I'm sure you'd be able to find it on the Chinese version of Amazon or on one of the shopping sites as well. And then in the TILEC course, we used 2 other books as the foundation of the reading that we need to do, which is Children Learning English by Jane Moon and Teaching Language to Young Learners by Lynn Cameron. So if you are interested in reading up or furthering your reading on this topic, these are 3 books that would help you quite a lot. And then also, just as a reminder that all material in this presentation is copyright to us. So please do not reproduce it without permission from us. Obviously, we are happy to share the presentation with everybody, and we will be sharing a recording of this webinar as well if you would like it. Okay. And before I open up to questions from everybody, if you would like to know any more information, the 3 best channels to do so, if you would like to know more about the Teaching Young Learners Extension Certificate, which is our upcoming course, which will be starting on the 8th of September, please email me at kevin.clare@englishforasia.com. Any other information or general inquiries about the TESOL courses that we offer here at English for Asia, please send an email to tsol@englishforasia.com and you will immediately be directed to the person who can best help you. Our website is also a mine of useful information, so if you would like to have a look around, hongkongtsol.com is the place you need to go.